And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
All right, well, Sunday starting off with good VFR from the Arctic coast here right on down into Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, IFR for the Aleutians, the Bering Sea, St. Lawrence, Nunivak Island right on the edge there, and also a lot of IFR pushing into the Barren Islands and up along the east side of Kodiak Island, covering the Gulf and staying off the southeast coast for the most part there. VFR in the inside waters for the afternoon. Mostly VFR for the southeast coast with marginal VFR right along the coastline. Lower conditions along the North Gulf Coast as well, but Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, inland areas of Kodiak Island, all VFR, as well as you can see here, all of interior Alaska, right out to Nunivak and St. Lawrence Island. A little bit of lower conditions there along the western Arctic coast, but good VFR on the east side. Still IFR for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. That holds into Monday morning, just kind of shifts around here. Big areas of IFR out over the Bering and Aleutian chain there. But now it looks like even the marginal VFR pulling just west of Nunivak Island and off to the southwest of St. Lawrence Island, leaving the interior in the VFR zone. Possible IFR central Arctic coast, otherwise VFR. IFR covering the Gulf of Alaska right along the southeast coastline, becoming mostly marginal VFR, it looks like, according to this chart, for Monday morning here for the southeast coast on the inside waters. Maybe some of that spilling into Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound as well. And for the afternoon, with some moisture moving westward here, looks like marginal VFR will be on the increase for the Mananuska, Susitna Valley, Cook Inlet area, and definitely the Kenai Peninsula, with IFR right up hugging the coastline here down into the Barren Islands, east side of Kodiak, right on down along the Alaska Peninsula. And any AM marginal VFR burning off to VFR for the southeast coast. Otherwise, no change in the interior, and looks like a lot of IFR right along the Arctic coast. No change out over the Bering Sea here. And for passes, Anatuvik and Adigan, another VFR day coming up for both those passes. And Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR continuing through Sunday, as well as rainy. Windy, VFR, Eastern Alaska Range, VFR for both passes there. Tanita, VFR, Portage, VFR, and Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels about 10,000 feet here over the interior. A little warmer out toward the Bering Sea here, 12,000 feet, and anywhere from 10 to 12,000 feet across the southeast coast. A little cooler over the southwest Bering and the Aleutians, about 8,000 feet there. And for icing, possibly some isolated moderate rime icing here for the western Aleutians. Remnants of this front, or the weak front here, still brings a chance of icing there, mainly for the Alaska Peninsula up toward the Pribilof Islands, western Arctic coast, down to maybe as far south as Kivalina there. And otherwise, icing free. Most of this heavier moisture area staying in the Gulf of Alaska. And the jet stream, low pressure, well southwest here of the Queen Charlotte Islands, but southeast flow about 95 knots off the south coast, or Prince of Wales Island there, and about 75 knots coming in toward Middleton Island. Then it really weakens here, and then we've got northeast flow around this high over the Seward Peninsula at about 65 knots along the lower and mid-Yukon River Valley areas. Light under ridging here over the eastern Bering Sea. Big low out west there, and 65 to 85 knot winds blowing around that center. And for the 9,000 foot winds, we've got westerlies up to 40 knots here into the Arctic coast. Otherwise, south winds over the Bering Sea, 35 to 45 knots. 40 knot southeast winds here for the Panhandle. And at 3,000 feet, light winds over much of interior, all of interior Alaska. Southwest 55 or southwest 50 knots for the western Arctic coast. Turn westerly 30 knots. These winds here mostly off the coast there. And then we've got south to southeast winds here from the Alaska Peninsula over the eastern Bering Sea at about 45 to 50 knots, but light for the southeast coast. Taking a look at turbulence, possible moderate turbulence here, Point Hope, Cape Lisburne area, as well as along the Alaska Peninsula. And light to isolated moderate turbulence possible for Nunivak Island and also for ADAC out to about Amchitka